Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing guest to introduce to you now. Chris Broomhead is a bodybuilder, personal trainer and coach, educator, entrepreneur, and advocate for science-based performance and health. After 14 plus years of competing in bodybuilding, he is now dedicated to cutting through the hype in health and performance. Chris focuses on GLP-1s and peptides such as semaglutide, Tirzepatide, Retatrutide, excuse me, amongst others, teaching how science and lifestyle work together for resilience, longevity, and transformation. You can find him on Instagram at Chris_Broomhead_research. Chris Broomhead, what an absolute honor it is to welcome you to Boundless Body Radio.
Thank you. It's very nice to be here.
It is nice to
Thank
host
you for the
you.
introduction.
Absolutely. There's so many new ones coming out all the time. I can't even pronounce them correctly anymore because there's so many new ones coming on. I really appreciate you coming on to talk about this topic, which I find very important. A lot of people are obviously having tons of questions about these compounds and how they work and if there's any risk associated with them. And so I'm really excited to chat with you about that today. And I'm so glad we had a pretty chance meeting. We got some email addresses kind of tangled up, and it looked like you may have been reaching out to Colt Milton, one of my friends who we've hosted on our show as well. I just have to say, getting mixed up with Colt, I think that's fine. I've been mixed up with worse people, but I do have to say I'm a better hockey player than Colt. So you can pass that along.
I like to hear.
Do you know
Is
Colt
the competitive nature of it?
Yeah, exactly. Is it do you know Colt through the bodybuilding scene?
Yeah, it's so loosely. It's because the bodybuilding world is so connected. Ultimately, the world is a big place, and we are such a small percentage of it that you tend to find at this point. You meet someone, you become friends, you speak on Instagram once, and then you meet them in person. It's like you've known each other all your life. So it's such a nice community to be part of.
Yeah, definitely. They definitely seem very supportive as well. Tell us how you got interested in bodybuilding to begin with.
I was actually an overweight kid. So I was in school, I was the biggest kid in the year. This was before a massive obesity epidemic that we have now. And I was the one that just struggled the most. So I was kind of pushed aside in sports, was pushed aside in life, I suppose, for a long time. And then I was the first guy to go to the gym as well, because I was just fueled on pain and anger. And I think we have to be when we're younger, especially as a guy, to really get that drive. I was just angry at myself and the world. And I think that's one of the biggest things to realize, that when you are obese, it's not a nice place to kind of continue life like that. And people try and say to me now, I'm still happy if I'm obese. And I think I was there, and there was a reason why I've been to the gym for 21 years. And it has such like a hard fire to start with, because it was that just pain against my life situation to make the big changes. And it carried me through in a time when we didn't have social media, we didn't have the GLPs like we're going to discuss today. And we didn't have any of the modern day advantages. It was just a desire to make a change, and you figure it out. So that was me for a long time. And then that led me to bodybuilding, because it was sort of so far away from everyone else, because no one else was really even training. I was 18 years old, and I'm kind of an outcast. I've made myself an outcast in university at that point, because I'm still the only guy that's really serious about training. So I'd gone from overweight to being accepted, and then unintentionally separate myself again by chasing the goals of being an athlete, but in a time when there was no help. So athletes at that age were way more successful than I was. And it just led me through into these bodybuilding gyms in the UK, which one of them is now one of the biggest bodybuilding chains in the UK in terms of gyms. And it's brought so many athletes across the country. And I walked in as an 18-year-old guy and just looked at these huge men and I was so inspired. And being in that environment of just these guys that were so far ahead of me and were so strong and just able to do everything. So I kind of wanted to be like them, became a bodybuilder, and just tried to improve year on year. As the years have gone on, we've had technology that's changed things, social media's changed things. Now we have the peptides, and we've just seen change after change and sort of evolution, one after another, as we go further down the line. And now we're at a place where we don't even know where it's going to go. The GLP-1s and the rest of the peptides are kind of the start of the next phase of medical care across the world, really.
Yeah. Interesting. One more question about bodybuilding. You and I have a very similar story and background where I was also kind of the chubby kid. I was interested in sports. I got into a fight that I didn't want to get into, as I was maybe 13 or 14, where a kid punched me right in the face, and I had no resources to do anything back to him. So that got me interested in health and fitness. But I imagine, if I'd lifted more than I do, I've spent, like you, 20 plus years in the gym and lifting weights and strength training. If I did more of it, I could probably get a little bit bigger than what I was, but I feel like I would have been somewhat limited by my genetics. When did you start to realize that, like, wow, the sky is kind of the limit for bodybuilding? I am able to build size maybe more than other people who are also lifting weights.
It's difficult because I started at a time when I was making so many mistakes, and I believe I would have made much better progress if it was now. And we had everything available that we have now. 20 years ago, I would have moved much faster. I wouldn't have turned to performance enhancement at the age that I did. I think I was way too young. I was 19. So I didn't have the mature head to make that kind of decision. And although I was really cautious, I read loads of books first, and I kind of started at the shallow end and slowly went further in. It was irresponsible looking back. I wish there'd been more stuff like this where people are discussing it, and they could say, well, if you're 19 years old, there are rare cases where people have low hormone levels, but for the most part, it's the bad training, the bad diet, not sleeping properly, messing around, trying to chase dates and whatever else that is not trying to make progress in the gym or your life and your career. And that's why most people are not getting to where they need to, because we do actually have everything available now. It's not a case of you have to just jump in at the deep end. And I do say that the progress you'll make with sunlight, sleep, good training, good diet, not just good in the average person's perception, but actually athlete level, as in precision, high performance, completely different from the average person going into the gym. And they'd see so much more progress.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a really good point. And yeah, you're right. We're lucky now that, you would have had more resources now than when you first got started. And yeah, like the type of strength training that I promote, mainly now is kind of a slow, high intensity training type of a training where you can literally take somebody, get them into the gym, 30 minutes, maybe 60 minutes in a week, split up into 2 total body sessions, moving a weight very, very slowly, very adjacent to failure, training all the different muscle fibers, not as like, we're going to make you jack. This is the best plan to put tons and tons of muscle on you, but we're going to make you stronger in a very time efficient way. And as part of that, you are like quite sore as you're pushing yourself almost all the way to failure. So as a bodybuilder, I've always been curious about this. How are you managing your recovery loads? I mean, the amount of time that you spend in the gym lifting so many weights. I mean, you mentioned the sunlight, the good diet, the sleep, all that stuff. Like, man, how are you able to manage all that to where you can go and train as hard as you need to?
Difficult. And also, it depends in what time of year it is. If it's the winter and you're in parts of the United States, UK, it's very difficult because your energy is low. It's cold all the time. The gyms are freezing. It's not enjoyable to train. And that even, when you remove the enjoyment, it gets harder. When you're in a warm climate and you've not got as many clothes on because it's warmer, you've got energy in the morning, the sun's out, significantly easier. And that makes a big difference to how you train, how you recover. And those aspects do help. Then we've got supplement regimes help, peptide regimes help. But it's getting everything in the right order. But ultimately, bodybuilding, if you want to pursue it as a professional, whether it's with a professional card in the IFBB, which is what we consider to be a professional in that industry, or just taking your competitions professionally, like serious, you've still got to dedicate everything to it. And since I've stepped away from competition for the last 2 or 3 years, I've just taken some of that energy that I would have dedicated to endless cardio, because it kind of consumes your energy all day. There's not a point in the day if you're getting ready for a show that you don't think about the show in some way. There's a lot of energy leakage, I suppose you'd say, where you just all day stressing about this thing, even if you don't feel stressed. So I've taken some of that and put it into my career and seen how actually I've lost a little bit of muscle, but what was that muscle for? To stand on stage. It wasn't for me to feel happier, because I feel great now. I can move better. Now we go to dance clubs all night and we can dance all night, and I've got high energy to do that. I've got energy to travel, and I've got more to give to other places. So this, I'd say, is more what the average person, especially the average listener would more aim for. And I do weights training, like bodybuilding style, kind of every other day, but I like to do mobility every day and cardio every day, something that's going to get me moving properly every day to feel good. It's the same as you're saying, that I want to go high intensity, get my body moving, heart rate up, fluctuations up and down, and then it's going to recover way more. Whereas if you go and do steps on the treadmill, you burn calories, but you don't get much for your body for the time you're going to use. So if someone's short on time and they want to be more efficient, it's going in doing, even I'll do sometimes circuit training and high intensity stuff that's going to use my body weight, or something that if I'm on the clock, I look on the gym, the benefits of being a personal trainer for a decade, and say, right, what can I do? Like a child did, with the sort of playful creativity, and just pull a session together and then just set the timer and go. And I've done a lot more of that since stepping away from bodybuilding. It's actually really enjoyable training as well.
That's great. Yeah, that must have been a difficult transition to get to that space. It does sound a lot more enjoyable. And yes, there's going to be a sacrifice there, but it's cool that you were able to move between different life goals and understanding that, you know, what brought you success and joy and happiness at one phase of your life can change and move, and you can move along with that. But man, I tell you, the most dedicated, I would say absolutely smart, super smart at their craft of building muscle, of getting lean, and like the amount of work that you have to do. Like with some of my clients, it's like, okay, I need you to eat protein, try to get protein at every meal, whatever. With bodybuilding, it's not like that. It's like you are eating rice and broccoli and chicken, and you're eating it maybe 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times every single day, whether you like it or not. Like that's what you have to do. And you guys figured that out way longer than everybody else. And you can stick with it even when like the meals must at some point just get like so like, oh, you're just over it, like disgusting. Like I just would love to tear down a pizza at some point. You guys never do it. It's pretty cool.
Like I remember when I was younger, and I was working security on nightclubs as well, and I didn't know how to cook salmon, but salmon was on my diet, and I'd cook it like chicken, but so it was so dry, and I just thought that's how salmon was. I was like 19 years old, and I'd eat it cold. So I'd have a water in one hand, and I'd be like mouthful of salmon. Why was I doing that to myself? it was at middle of the night, and I'm standing there freezing cold, forcing this salmon down. And now I know there's other ways to get the results. And bodybuilding is changing every year. And I suppose if you look at the way the athletes are approaching these diet periods, we're testing all of the new things. Like we're testing some of the mitochondria upregulating peptides. So they're affecting the cells, make up your body. The driver of the cell is the mitochondria. We're affecting the way that works, which is kind of addressing deep layers of biology. And that's seen a lot of promise. But the bodybuilders are going to try it with all these different varied situations and pay really close detail to it. So it's quite important. And then the GLPs have been around for a few years. When you're taking them to get to that extreme of body fat, it's gathering information that you couldn't get clinically, because it's not ethical to get a bodybuilder to stage. It's dangerous. And that's why we should have coaches. We have people around us, and there's always medical people at the events, because we don't know, and we try to be cautious, but ultimately we understand that it's dangerous. And the point that the average person needs to go to is so far before that, and you can get in amazing shape, feel amazing, live a healthier life, better quality life on the same stuff that we're talking about here. Just do some exercise every day. There's not really a reason not to, not because you're getting old or you're anything else. It's the thing that your body requires: sleep, movement. These are basic things that your body's supposed to be given. And we wonder why we don't feel very good. So then people sometimes turn into medications and vices that are to make them feel better, and when they don't feel good because they're not giving the body what it needs.
Well said. I really like that. As we're getting into our topic today of GLP-1s, obviously in the bodybuilding world, there's all kinds of different components. You mentioned performance enhancement already, but like what kinds of things, be it supplements or other things? Obviously, you've been interested in this for a long time. What kinds of, like, again, whether you call them supplements, chemicals, performance enhancing, drugs, if you want to call them that, like what things have you used to success in the course of your bodybuilding career before you stopped a few years ago?
It's a very broad question. I say that because I suppose I was a guy that came in and I love the science side of it, which is why I've gone into research now. I love that way more than kind of when I was coaching people. It was kind of the same level. So I'm then learning more and more. Which if you go through education, it's a progression, and I love that side. So it came in when first I started training. It was let's try every single part of training. When I'm looking at supplements, it was let's try every single supplement and see what they do. And then it was the same with performance enhancement. Let's try every steroid. That started when I was 19 years old. As I said, I mean, irresponsible at that age. Yes, I say that now. Going down the list on like steroids.com and just trying to acquire everyone, try them, get my. So that's, I've been doing that since I was 19. I'm 37 now. So there's just a lot of information being gathered, because when you've gone and tried pretty much every supplement, every performance enhancement, just to see what they did, because I found that you can do the research, but not everyone should do this. I feel I should put a warning there that it's not a very good idea, because you need to be sensible and educated to be able to kind of start and experiment with stuff. Most of the things that I've taken up, I wouldn't advise for most people. They're just not required. Some of the peptides still not required. A lot of the performance enhancements in terms of steroids, absolutely not required. And that's why I've tried, but there's a reason why it was a try for an experiment and nothing more. Because you have to monitor your health properly. And the average person is even like tracking the heart rate and steps and activity levels. But if you know what your heart's doing, then you're paying attention to, okay, what does my heart feel like when it increases in speed? What does my blood sugar feel like when it drops? And you can kind of test that, and you get the sensations. You're kind of mapping your body out, and that's what makes it. I suppose you understand the risks before you're doing these things. But if you completely disconnect it from your body, the risks are through the roof. It is incredibly dangerous. No, you shouldn't be doing it. Even with coaching, some people are still. It's hard that it's incredible they don't hurt themselves on a daily basis. Like some of the questions I get sometimes, you think, I hope someone's supervising some of the stuff you're doing. And it's not to say that people are children, but it's just that when there's so many things going on, as you've seen with some of the clients, if they struggle to stick to a diet, if you start throwing in something that's going to adjust hormones or something like that, the variables start doing this. And it's very hard you can easily lose track, and you can easily start to cause problems further and further down the road.
Got it. Yeah, that was a really thoughtful answer to a very poorly worded question. So I really appreciate that. And it was even today, I'm listening to a podcast episode, a very, very, very popular podcast. Pretty much anybody in the health space would know, who this was. The person being hosted, they were talking primarily about protein, but then it got into the topic of like best things for weight loss and bariatric surgeries and medications. And like the episode concluded with the guest saying that like we've thought about this before, and maybe we should revisit that every person in their teenage years should get what he called a poly pill, which was like you take this pill forever, and it's got a little bit of metformin, and it's got a little bit of a statin, excuse me, and it's got a little bit of a blood pressure medication, and it also has a little bit of GLP-1 because there's so many benefits, and everybody could benefit, and most of these people are going to be fat and out of weight anyway. And I'm listening to that, I'm like, oh boy, like I don't know that I would go to that particular lengths, but we have been using these medications for a while, and sure enough, like everybody says, like there's tons of promise, there's lots of upside. So through your research, what have you learned about GLP-1s? What are they? And what do you think some of the potential benefits or risks are from taking these?
I'll just mention that the pill that you said. So we've been practicing in the bodybuilding industry, the safer usage model, for quite a number of years now. And it does cover things like that: metformin, taken usually morning and nighttime, and ARB, blood pressure medication, to open up the vascular system, especially around the heart. So it kind of takes pressure off the heart and helps in a number of ways. So it's basically the same sort of thing. And it's interesting, if there's different communities of people starting to look this way, it means we're seeing a good evolution, which is positive. And it's the same with GLP. We have, I think it's 12 in total. It started 2010, I believe, was the first rendition, and then they just continued through. If you go on something like ChatGPT, you can easily find all of them. But the first, I think it was 8 of them, didn't really get any traction, and it went to liraglutide, which was daily, didn't really get traction because people don't want to be injecting every day. I mean, it kind of makes sense. When semaglutide came in, Ozempic, that's when it really took off. But obviously, I was already kind of behind the scenes in that area. So I watched the full thing, whereas someone else is just hearing about Ozempic maybe now, and they don't know what's gone on for the last 5 years. But what's actually happened is we went from the daily injection, which didn't get much traction, weekly injection being Ozempic, semaglutide, suddenly got traction, and it really worked. Like, there was no denying the fact it works. And a lot of the bodybuilding community was arguing sometimes saying, well, you don't need to take it. And they overlooked the point of it was used for a huge number of obese people in the studies, and they all lost weight. Now, people clung on to the fact they gained it back afterwards, but overlooked obese people who can't lose weight lost weight, and they were almost side effect free, which is insane. It's insane that happened. Because, like, you know, I personal train people. I know someone comes to me with the goal of trying to lose weight. They've got me helping them, dragging them through it all, like 4 or 5 times a week sometimes. They still struggle. So that's how kind of groundbreaking this first wave was. Shortly after, Tirzepatide hit the scene, which is Mounjaro. So Tirzepatide was another long-acting analog, but it's 2 components. So you had the GLP, which is the first one, and GLP being semaglutide, Ozempic, that just slowed down appetite by slowing down digestion. So that was the main way it works. And you just basically saw your food sit in your stomach. It wasn't very pleasant. I tried to help people with things like fiber supplements, and it helps. But then when Tirzepatide came in, it reduced cravings as well as reduced appetite. So they didn't need to put so much GLP, so much GLP-1 when they've got GIP. So now you've got 2 components. And it worked much better, saw slightly better results on studies, slightly better results in people all over the world. But the problem was that the doses started to go really high. So the cost was going really high as well. And that isn't really practical. Along came Retatrutide, which is around now. So I suppose it takes so long to bring a drug to market that it's hit sort of other developers in a generic version way earlier than it's actually been released. So at this point, it's released some places, not others, but most people in the world can acquire Retatrutide. It's been talked about everywhere. It's crazy. The buzz I've seen on social media, on the internet, adverts, everything is just, it's everywhere. More than Ozempic, because I'm sat in the same place looking at each one of them coming along. But Retatrutide really works. I mean, I started on it last September, and it brought my dose requirement down. I've actually written a clinical paper about how it can help neurological reprogramming. So that would be, we silence in the food noise and kind of it's the noise of life, all the distractions, everything that you'd be unconsciously pulled towards, food being one of the biggest ones. But if it was gambling, smoking, drinking, people are reporting that they're reducing their levels across the board. So some people are taking Retatrutide to stop smoking, not actually to lose weight. So they're often running at a slightly lower dose because they don't want to suppress their appetite too much. But as well, if you're going to stop smoking, your appetite would raise because you're dropping nicotine out. So it'd correct that balance, which a lot of people struggle with, because if they're then trying to come off cigarettes, they've lost all the effects of the nicotine, including the appetite suppression. So they'll be craving food, and they're like shaking because they're not having nicotine anymore. And it's just a very, very unpleasant experience. Retatrutide and Tirzepatide was also doing it, are helping people slowly wean off these substances that they don't want. And then they could drop the Retatrutide out as well. So it's been fascinating to see how it's gone beyond weight loss now to help people basically get in the driver's seat of their life. Because most people, you don't feel in control of your life if you're pulled around by desires, if you see adverts on TV and you're buying things impulsively, eating things that you know aren't good for you, but you want them. And it's like, I want all over the place. And to give someone control over that is one of the biggest levels of peace, I suppose, you could give people. Because I was one of those people, you know, I'd lost my weight for being obese, but it was a battle all day, every day. And to now sit here and I can just have a conversation calmly because I'm not thinking, I'm hungry. And it was kind of pulling me out of every moment that I should be present. And it was the same with so many other people, but they just keep it to themselves. And that's one of the biggest things for me, that now we're starting to look beyond the initial studies on weight loss and look into other studies in other areas. It's amazing what we're starting to find.
Got it. Okay, and I want to go back to the original. You said the brand name Ozempic, I believe, was the very first one. What I remember learning about this, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that it hit the market first as a diabetes medication at a much lower dose. And then, they discovered a little bit of weight loss, so they started to ramp up the dose, and that slowing of digestion was magnified. And that's when I heard a lot of stories that I don't tend to hear too much of anymore, where people were having terrible side effects, like the food sitting in their gut for days and days and days. They would have burps and belches that were like absolutely rancid. The stomach pains would be quite a bit. I don't know if those were exaggerated, and I don't tend to hear about those kinds of things anymore. Is that because we're getting a little bit better with the dosage, like bringing the dosage down to a better level where we're reducing the side effects, or is it the introduction of some of these other medications that are doing more than one thing?
It seems to be that it was mainly semaglutide. So when it was just GLP, that was causing a lot of the effects. Because people, for a start, they were taking too much. And people will always take too much of everything. When it's something that for weight loss, there will always be people going way overboard. One thing we've seen is just people not knowing the maths, so they're working out the equations wrong, taking too much, or they're just eager. Like, for example, if you get the generic versions, they come in a small glass vial. Well, some people have then took the full vial and got confused, or they've reconstituted it with water, because you normally get it as lyophilized, so it comes in this little white puck, like a hockey puck. You then mix water with it, it reconstitutes, and you get your dosage. So you need to just do a basic math equation to make sure you got it right. And people have just got that completely wrong, and they took like 10 times what they're supposed to. Like, one of the messages I got was someone had taken 10 milligrams of semaglutide, and they messaged me because they'd seen my video and said, "What should I do?" And I just laughed at first, because I didn't really know what else to do. It's basically the recommended starting dose is 0.25 milligram, so a quarter of a milligram. And this guy took 10 milligrams. So you're taking
I was thinking
so
that's a
far over.
monster dose.
I mean, the one good thing is I've seen these insane dosages, and no one's been really ill. They've just gone to hospital, vomiting, stomach paralysis. I mean, that makes sense. You've took something that basically just caused stomach paralysis. So it's like the muscles kind of cramp inside. So they try putting water in, they'd be sick. And then obviously, if you've got no water going in and you're being sick, you're going to get risk of dehydration, electrolyte imbalance. So you need to go to hospital just to get put on a drip, so your electrolytes stay in a safe level. And anti-nausea medication. That's it. And they get sent home after a couple of days. So our nurses and doctors know what to do with it now. But that seems to only be with semaglutide. Once it got to the second component and the third component now with Retatrutide, it's kind of hard to get that level of GLP, because you're now taking like a 33% GLP, 33 because it's 3 component, not 100%. So it's really hard to try and get that equivalent dosage. And I have had a couple of people that were close friends, and they've took too much, because one thought it was growth hormone, he took too much. He just ended up missing some meals for a few days and was annoyed because he did an off-season for bodybuilding. So then I thought, wow, that's way less of a dramatic outcome than the semaglutide was an equivalent dosage. So it shows that the safety profile is getting better, the results getting better. And the main thing is just that we were seeing like SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which wasn't caused by semaglutide. It was caused by paralysis of the gut, and then food sitting there. And then if it's sitting there, it's partially digested, it's going to start gathering bacteria and just basically rot inside you, which is going to cause problems. So the main thing we saw to combat that was just fiber powder and enough water. Because you don't forget, most people, they barely drink any water or any fluids at all. They never have any fiber. They'll have really poor nutrient quality food. And it doesn't really pass through digestion very well in the first place. So if you slow that down, it's just going to get worse. Those who were doing the dieting properly ended up with a way lower dosage anyway, way less side effects, and it then just digests. And ultimately, when semaglutide is used properly, it's life-changing.
Wow. Okay. And you mentioned the food noise thing, which is by far the top benefit that I hear from most people who end up taking it. Is like when I was, always thinking about food, always thinking about my next meal, I would get obsessive about snacking and that kind of thing. When that quiets down, that seems like to me the biggest benefit. Is that kind of the way you see it as well?
Yeah, big time. I'd say there is one caveat to that, though, and a few of the bodybuilding coaches have said the same thing. if you've never dieted without, you don't develop the mental fortitude that comes with dieting. And it is tough. Like, okay, some people, I was one of them, and I'm still going to stick with the point. Some people do have a higher appetite, and it is extremely difficult for them to push to a bodybuilding competition, for example. Like, it used to consume me really badly. And I was doing crazy amounts of cardio, and it's just what was required of my body. I'd been overweight. It's harder to get in shape when you've been overweight. But I still think that everyone should do at least one diet hard, because the world we live in, anyway, the Western world, is relatively easy these days. Most things are quite convenient. You get most things the same day. You could probably not leave the house and live the rest of your life if you wanted to. So to go through that physical process of, this is difficult, and I'm going to put myself willingly through this choice that I've made, builds you into a character that you can't really get in any other way. Not that I found. And I don't think you can shortcut your way there. And especially at the end of a diet, when you're exhausted and you've got to do cardio, no matter how you feel, and you've got to eat that food, no matter how you feel. That's that bit that it's also got a big carryover to life. If you're trying to be successful, hey, you're tired, it doesn't matter. You've got this to do, you've got responsibilities. If you're a parent, it doesn't matter. You've got kids to look after, you've got responsibilities. So it's those things that you kind of need that as a person, as an adult in the world as well. And I do think that comes from pushing hard in the gym, from dieting. And if you take that bit away because you're trying to make it too easy, you do, I think you cause yourself a bit of a disservice.
Yeah, I really like that approach. That's a really good point. I don't think I thought about it exactly that way, but that level of discipline to do the one thing would help you, with all the other things you need to manage, which I really appreciate. And it's a perfect segue to the next question. It's like, what is the difference between people taking these medications and not also doing lifestyle changes versus the people that use this? Like, I've heard it explained, like a great way to prescribe these is to, do them at a lower dose for a shorter amount of time, get the food noise reduced. And in that time, let's start to make some dietary and lifestyle changes. Let's increase the protein. Let's get you on a strength training protocol. Let's do these things in this period of time while you're taking the medication where the food noise is a little bit lower. Let's reintroduce some of these habits so that, if we want to get to the point where we're going to lower or taper off or get off completely some of these medications, the good habits that you created then will help you continue to maintain over time. Like, so I guess all of that to say is, like, what is the difference between somebody that's just taking these and they're doing the exact same lifestyle? They don't need to leave the house. They can Grubhub all their food if they want. The food is not great. They're mostly sedentary versus, somebody that's also changing their circumstances and their health habits.
I'd say the first thing is the dose requirements is completely different. So, for example, you've got bodybuilders getting into contest shape, and some of them are really big guys as well. So it's not like it's most of the time we would see a bigger person requires a higher drug load for whatever drug we choose. In this case, it's lower because they've got discipline. So they've already done the dieting without. So just any relief it's almost like we don't have to try anymore. So anyone who's built that level of discipline, it's more a case of now you can make conscious decisions through the diet, whereas before it was quite, you're trying to fight your emotions and control it. But if you've never done any of that and you've just overeaten, never really dieted, you take this stuff, don't change anything, you will get results, but you'll need to take way more, because now you're trying to destroy your appetite, not just take the edge off. So with us, it's, I'm someone who, use myself as an example, I was so much food noise, and then just reducing that down allowed me to now, I'm still going to eat the meals. I'm still going to do the stuff because I would do it anyway, but I can do it without feeling like it's a battle all day. So it made it, if someone's actually willing to put the work in, it means that, especially if you've done a diet before, you will go, it's probably the easiest diet you've ever done, and you'll get better results than before. You'll sustain it longer. When you get to the end of whatever goal you had, whether it's a holiday or a wedding, or you won't then pile the weight back up. You can stay there, which is what I did first. I got to a goal weight, and I just thought, I'm going to stay here for a bit. And I enjoyed a full summer and that was the first time I really used the GLPs to their advantage. I did a full summer and just stayed in shape. And it was the best summer of my life because I'd never been able to just stay in shape. I'd always been dieted and then hit the goal, straight back up. It was so incredible to be able to stay there and just feel normal. I suppose, which I think will probably resonate with a lot of people.
Yeah,
But then
got it.
there's so many other people I've seen, and it's just higher and higher doses at the moment. And that's why they were getting the stomach issues, because you're just going so high until you hit the upper limit of case of, sometimes people's hair's falling out, they're not eating for days, they're getting this really like ill, skinny, gaunt looking. Like it's almost a over dieted. We just say that they just look diet fatigue, because the whole body's starting to waste. And that's when we're having the discussion of, do GLPs cause muscle loss? No, extreme dieting does. I did a video actually, I didn't have a whiteboard here. I did a full video about it on YouTube, just to explain that these are all the things that cause muscle loss, and these are all the things that you need to do to prevent muscle loss. And it was weight training, eating protein, or even just weight bearing exercise. Well, if you're not doing that stuff, why would your body hold on to the muscle? I mean, that's basics of human biology. We know that, and that's what I need to get across to people. Of, yes, you can take a GLP and you will lose weight, which is what happened in the trials and all the studies that have been done. People haven't really done lifestyle change. They've just took the stuff and got a result. But it requires way more of the stuff. Try way more of the drug, whatever you're taking. Whereas if you did just even some exercise, especially if you do nothing, if you started some, it could even be just walking, and you made some changes to your diet to eat stuff that everyone knows that pizza and cake is not good for you and it's not nutrient dense food. Like, everyone knows that. So then try and eat some stuff. Even if you're not an expert and you don't have much knowledge, you could probably make good food choices. You'll have learned enough just going through life to know that. And the results are so much different. So you need way less of a GLP to get the result, way less stress on your body. You feel better, your energy will be better. And with Retatrutide, you really should see your energy go up, because your body should be functioning better. And then you're losing weight as well. So you're getting lighter, your blood pressure often goes down, your lipids start to get into a better range. So if someone actually got their full blood panel done, they would see a before and after that's quite drastic. And especially if you then change your lifestyle on top, it could completely overhaul your health.
Got it. Yeah, that's the way I understood it. So I appreciate that. And yeah, it makes a lot of sense that if you're using less of a dose, less side effects, cost is less, all the other potential pitfalls would be there. And again, you as a bodybuilder had established all of those habits, and you even admitted yourself, like, going on this made it a little bit easier for you. Does it also make it easier for people that don't have those habits in place? Again, the person that is, eating mostly, takeout, and they are mostly sedentary. Are they noticing that it's easy for them to start with the habits that you maybe had already had kind of in place at the time?
Yeah, because I think that some people are short-sighted and forget that if you're far down the road of, so say you're in your mid-30s, or anywhere around that, so sort of 20 to 40 years old especially, and you've been overweight for at least a decade, you are so far in that direction that it's not like you just go to the gym. You don't just start a diet and go to the gym. It's miles away from where you are. So you wouldn't even know where to start. And I think that's most people's problem. You've got a world that's throwing, basically, if they're on social media and whatever they've been looking at that's got them to this position is going to be constant, that's their world. That's all they'll see. So they'll see the food adverts, they'll see the other people that are better than them and they're comparing themselves to, and it makes them feel bad. So how do you just, I'm just going to go get in shape and go to the gym? Probably not. It's probably going to be quite a long road. And if you can help someone just get a bit of a calm starting point by taking away the distractions, I suppose, which is the food noise, it's social media, it's the other stuff, and you can have them just start a calm, like normal environment, which ultimately would bring them. Most people will be able to make much better decisions because now they're calm, they're not being pulled all over. And if you're starting something new like that, you are new. You're not going to be able to go really quick. So you need to take your time and understand that if you've got a GLP in place, you can take your time. Don't be looking trying to get in shape in a week if you've been there a decade. Just say, I'm going to start changing my life. And not even set a definite goal. If you just said, I'm going to try and do better every day. So day one, do some exercise. If you don't know any at all, just walk 10 minutes. and it's that sort of advice that if the people that were getting the GLPs and given no other advice, we're just given basic stuff of, don't try and rush to the gym. If you've never been to the gym before, it'll cause complete anxiety overload and you'll probably never go back. It's a bad idea. Go for a walk, get outside, try and get some sunlight if you can. Try and drink a litre of water today, just water on its own. And people say, I don't like water. Well, your body needs it, so drink some. And just like this is the bit that I think we often just expect that people know. And they may do, but there's 1,000 things to try and learn if you're trying to get someone from unhealthy lifestyle to healthy lifestyle. And I know that because I've started training people. And it was really hard for people. And they weren't stupid people. Everyone's intelligent, but they haven't got any skill set and knowledge in this area at this moment in time. It takes time. And like I said, especially with Retatrutide, it seems to be reprogramming to a degree, or allowing people to reprogram their lifestyle and their habits, because it's calming everything down, allowing them to slowly make those changes. And when you're in control of how you feel, someone could give you a diet plan and you can actually follow it and feel satisfied. Whereas normally, if you cut your calories and you're used to eating really processed food, you're not satisfied. You're starving all day. So now we can stop people being so hungry. We can stop them craving so much. And just, as I said earlier, put them in the driver's seat of the whole situation themselves. For probably the first time with some people. Because most people don't feel in control. They feel just pulled all over. And it's this sort of overload of emotions and feelings all day, every day. And we know that. And that's the way the Western world is. But knowing that allows us to say, well, to change it, it might be quite hard for the average person on the road. If we introduce one of these GLPs or something like this, we give them the thing they needed, or the missing piece to be able to start making the progress that they've been wanting for so long.
Well, that's why this topic is so interesting to me, and it's very helpful to hear all these things, because obviously I'm not a doctor. I'm not prescribing these things. Some of my clients take them, some of them choose not to. I personally like a lot of people in the health space, like I would rather not take medications if that's an option. If you can not take a medication, I think that's better than taking a medication. There are always side effects with these things. But that said, like, here I am, like I've besides being a chubby kid, like I've been in pretty good shape. I've been a personal trainer for almost 2 decades. And like, I don't need to lose a bunch of weight at age almost 42. That's not the case for all of my clients. Some of my clients are like the person you described earlier, where they're obese. They tried lots of different things, including diets that I promote, and sometimes they don't tend to work. And so learning about these things and learning about tools, in a way that, like, okay, let's figure out what lifestyle things we could do as well. Let's understand what the pitfalls are. Is this best for you? I don't know, man. Like, maybe it is, maybe it's not, but at least we know, and we don't have to sit around and say like, oh, drugs are bad. This is the worst thing you could do. You got to do this with diet and lifestyle. Like, that's not how everybody is. I can't get into the brain of some of my clients and feel their emotions and know what they've been through in the past. I can certainly suggest, some things, and going on the walks in the sunshine and all that stuff. But to blanketly say like, oh, you should never take a medication, it's like, well, for some people, it sure seems like it's working and there doesn't seem to be a lot of downside. So that's why I think this is really helpful to learn about.
Yeah, and I still think people should say why. Like the professionals, if you're trying to then coach someone and they say, I want to take this thing, what's the reason? And it's not to then say you can't, it's just, I want to know that you've actually thought about it. Not just watch some guy on Instagram say he lost loads of weight and then you're saying, I'm going to do that. Because that's almost like you've looked for a shortcut. Whereas I've had clients just like yourself that, hey, if they're trying to lose like 100 pounds, that's an almost impossible mission that they're trying to put themselves on. And if we just have other ways that we're going to help that, because ultimately it's still going to, how do we structure the training? Well, there's probably going to be some breaks in a year-long process. We're not just going to hammer your calorie deficit 365 days straight. There's probably going to be some maintenance periods. There might be, I tell you to take a trip at some point just to take a break, because we're trying to make it across this gap. And doing it one shot is quite hard. If we put GLP in, it helps get across the gap. If we put the break periods, it helps. It's just another tool. Or at least for us, it's another tool. And I wish people could see it more like that. And it seems to be that people are starting to change the narrative. Hopefully conversations like this will help that. But it's about being responsible as well. Because some people are just, they even seeing someone talk about it on social media, buying it on TikTok or Instagram, and it's like, you could be buying anything. You're probably going to mess the dosage up, take too much. You've got no one to go to for help because you've not gone anywhere near any doctors in the process. And that's really not a very smart idea. It's you know,
Okay.
people are upset if the doctor won't give it to them, but they've also got a duty of care. They're trying to know that you're thinking about it, you're being responsible, that you're actually trying to do something about your health problems. And most doctors are quite supportive at that point.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so I was going to ask you about availability. I would assume that, you know, if I wanted to do this or most of my clients wanted to do this, they would have to go through a medical doctor. But you also hear, I don't know if black market is a too strong of a term, but like people have other ways to get this, or it's some of these things are advertised, you know, at the spa down the street. And I don't know whether they have a doctor on staff or somebody they work with, or is this, you know, something you can get over the counter and you don't need a prescription for? Like, where are we at right now with as far as like availability for some of these things?
I'd say since social media started, it's just become very open for anything that people would want to acquire. Not just a GLP, but it seems peptides, performance enhancements, things like that. I don't advise anyone to buy it off some person on social media. It's just because it is a wild west, and you're getting things that are manufactured in any country of the world, most likely a lower cost country. And there's a reason why most people will turn to UK or US standard products, because we know that they've gone through certain processes to get that stamp of approval. And that's why we are really strict, and especially in medicine, it's really strict of we have to do clinical trials, we have to prove that this product is safe for massive population groups, and it goes through the same process as every other drug. And then we have to make sure that it's being manufactured at that same standard consistently. Because you can't have one batches open, which does happen in some other countries. And we don't know. And ultimately, the people who are buying things on the black market, they really don't. So if you can buy something from a doctor, it is always better, because in most countries, it just ensures the standard of quality. But then it can be more affordable. There's a lot of red tape when it comes to doctors, because some people like me as a bodybuilder now, not as the obese person from the past, I wouldn't be entitled to any of these things if I wasn't doing it for a research setting. I'm only, you know, if I was trying to go to a doctor, because they've only got a reserved amount of units as well, so they go into more obese people. So it's obesity and diabetes, which ultimately should be the primary reasons. If it's someone wanting to lose weight, then no, the doctor's probably going to say no, just because there's other people that are prioritized. And I understand that. So a lot of people are turning to the black market because they do still want to try things. And it's been like that way with most things. But if you are going to understand that the doctor is going to be a high standard, it's going to be consistent, black market is questionable. And where you're buying it from also could be questionable. There are people, probably the clinic down the road, some of them will be licensed. And you probably know, if you're working with a clinician and they are a high standard of everything else in their practice, the products they have are probably going to be high standard, because they'll do quite a lot of due diligence. But if it's some wheeler dealer on Instagram, probably not. And I have seen some of them where, you know, I've seen test results where a lot of people have sent things off to labs to be tested. There's one in Europe called Janoschek that's one of the biggest in the world. They've had all level of different things. Some of them had got nothing in at all. Some are overdosed, some are underdosed, some have other components in. So you just got to be careful. And if something's like, if it goes cloudy, if it hurts at the injection site, don't take it again. It's unlikely to cause serious damage if it's just one injection in a small amount. Your body probably will get rid of it if it is a defect product. But if you keep taking it, you know, it could cause some serious damage as well.
Yeah, again, that's really well explained. I really appreciate that. Is there anything that I haven't asked you about GLP-1s or other peptides in general that you'd want our listeners to know?
I'd say what the next stage, where's it going to? So we've already got we had short-acting GLP, which was sort of where it first started to take off. Long-acting GLP, just one component. Then it's gone two components, GLP, GIP. Then it was GLP, GIP, and glucagon being Retatrutide, to what we sort of discussion, that's where the noise is coming from at the moment. There's a few people, whether it's just a sort of a marketing thing, I don't know. Because I know what we could produce from the research that's been done. in terms of adding extra components and how we can. The main thing is addressing how the body's metabolically broke. If you're overweight, your body just doesn't really respond. As you'll know, if you put someone who's been quite unhealthy for some time, you put them on a diet, they don't respond like someone who, like yourself, if you were to go on a diet now, within a day, it'll be like snap into action. Your body knows what to do. A lot of people are not in that position. So if we can add components to a GLP medication to help the cellular health, help the body function on a deeper mechanistic level, then you'll see much greater effects from the 3 components that are already there in Retatrutide. So that's where we look into. And there's a couple of guys saying there's one promoting a 4 component, and there's one saying a 6 component. When I've tried to look research into that and put all the things together, my AI, which is so obviously if you use AI a lot, you'll probably have your own paid subscription, which will give you like a pro version. So mine's set for clinical research. It's saying it's probably just a marketing picture, but we'll look to see, because if these guys are actually onto something and they're going to produce this 6 component product, it will completely change how your body operates, especially if you're overweight. So it'd be incredibly exciting. That's like the next 4 or 5 years maximum, I think, because we're now shortening the time frame for a medical trial. So if normally it was like a 12-year process, it's too long. The world's moving so quickly now. We're readdressing how that's structured, because it's just unnecessary to go for 12 years in development, and we waste so much money as well. So if they can shorten that period down, we'll start to see the cycles of things like this turning a lot faster. So we could hopefully get to a 6 component product, maybe more. And ideally, if it's a single injection that someone could take once a week or even once a month, and it starts to fix the body from inside, then that's where we'd like to go. It's where I'd like to go. But there's quite a few steps between that point and where we are right now. But it'll be it's moving so quickly now. I see it in the next 5 years, we'll be at a point where it'll be a pill or a medication that you take and your body just kind of changes.
Wow. Yeah, interesting. Well, this has been very educational. And I think whether people, are in favor of the pharmacy or sorry, the taking drugs or not taking drugs, like it's happening. Like the cat's out of the bag on these things, and people are going to take them. And so having this education, understanding, the how you can also implement lifestyle factors, establishing good habits, I think has been really, really helpful for people, because like I said, like people are doing this, and if people are doing this incorrectly, they could end up in a bad place. And so I really appreciate you coming on. I'm so glad we got to meet and we got to host you on the show. This has been a really fun conversation. Chris, where would you like people to go to find you and connect with you and your work?
We are both on Instagram and YouTube for the most part. So we've got 2 channels. Just put my name in, Chris Broomhead, and you've got Chris Broomhead Research, Chris Broomhead Official in Instagram, and we've got Chris Broomhead Official and Chris Broomhead Research on YouTube as well. So the research page is more just educational videos talking about all the products I'm researching, and it's kind of backdating quite a lot of stuff as well, because I've only started redoing the content now. We're trying to keep the other stuff more for lifestyle, training, realizing that, I've been a personal trainer for a decade, I've been a bodybuilder for 2 decades. There's a lot of knowledge there, but to separate the two, so we've got videos like this, videos in the real world, traveling, training, and how I manage that as sort of this point in my life, to hopefully be really helpful for a mass audience to try and improve their knowledge.
Well, yeah, going through your social media definitely is helpful, and just like this episode has been very educational. So I think people will really love those resources. And Chris, yeah, like I said, it was great to meet you, and it was great to host you on the show today for educating us on this really important topic. We really, really appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.